I've decided to start a YouTube channel.
The West is leading Ukraine down the primrose path.
And the Israelis are executing a genocide in Gaza.
It's not China's fault that it wants to be powerful.
So if you get into trouble and you dial 911, there's nobody at the other end. Hi, I'm John Mearsheimer, and I've decided to start a YouTube channel. I think this will be an excellent opportunity for me to expand on different issues which I talk about on the various shows that I do. And it will also give me an opportunity to talk about topics that I don't address in those shows, which I think that you might find interesting. To give you a good sense of what I have in mind, let me talk about a number of different categories of topics that I plan to address in these forthcoming videos. First of all, I'd like to talk about contemporary political issues, such as the war in the Middle East. And here we're talking about the Iran war, of course. And I'd like to talk about why that war started, how it's been conducted, and where the war is headed. And furthermore, I'd like to talk about the Ukraine war. And to give you a sense of what I'd like to do there, I'm very interested in the whole question of how that war started back in February of 2022. And when I was a graduate student, I wrote a PhD dissertation on conventional deterrence, which actually became my first book. And I think that that book on conventional deterrence has a lot to say about the origins of the Ukraine war. And I'd like to address that subject. Furthermore, I'd like to talk about important historical issues. For example, last June 22nd, was the anniversary of the German invasion of the Soviet Union, the infamous Operation Barbarossa in 1941, which I think was one of the most important historical events of all time. I'd like to devote an entire show to talking about that military campaign. Furthermore, I'd like to talk about the workings of the international system, how I think international politics works. To put it in slightly different terms, I'd like to talk about international relations theory. As you know, there's a lot of interest these days, for example, in the state of the international order. What does the international order look like today? What has happened to the liberal international order? What is the future of the international order? These are all big topics, and topics that I've spent a lot of time thinking about and I'd like to address in a subsequent video. Furthermore, I'd like to talk about books and articles that I think people might find interesting. And these, of course, would be books that I judge to be important. A good example would be a new book that's coming out called Israel's Lobby by Eli Clifton and Ian Lustig. This is a fascinating book that deals with a subject which, as you know, is dear to my heart. That is the Israel lobby. And I'd like to talk at some length about that book and talk about how it compares to the book that Steve Walt and I wrote back in 2007. And then finally, I take trips from time to time to various places around the world. And sometimes I learn very interesting things on those trips. And when I do, what I'd like to do is come back and talk to you about my findings, and hopefully you would find that interesting, and hopefully you would find all of the videos that I present on this YouTube channel to be of great interest. With that thought in mind, I would encourage all of you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will do my best to produce first-rate videos for you. Thank you very much.